I'm here at Mcquarter Park in Redmond, and if that town sounds familiar, I've mentioned it multiple times in other videos. It's the town I grew up in around here. So this isn't just going to be a trip to Mcquarter Park. It's also going to be a trip to some of the other places that I went to as a child and grew up, the neighborhood I grew up in, a couple of other parks, and maybe even stop by the old brick road. But let's go ahead and see what happens today. This is apparently where the park got its name, from Mrs. Elise Farrell Mcquarter, a wealthy Seattle resident who began boarding her horse at the farm. When she died, she willed the property to the city of Redmond in 1971, and it's a 68-acre parcel of land. Although I don't know, I've been all around this property. I don't think it's 68 acres here, so maybe they sold some of it. I moved into Redmond in 1970, so I was here the year before that. And this is the place telling the history of the property. This is kind of crazy. I lived in Redmond for all those years. I walked out in the woods, sometimes even at night. Never ever one time saw a bear, but apparently a black bear was recently sighted here, and so they're giving a warning to people. And this was posted just this past Thursday, so it's possible it could still be in the area. And we got a couple of goats here. They're too busy eating to pay any attention to my nonsense. These are a couple of coon pigs named Poppy and Petunia. I don't know which one is which. These are Helen and Edna. Again, I don't know which one's Helen and which one's Edna. Maybe that makes me prejudiced or something, because I kind of thinking they all look alike, but I can't tell from their picture which one is which. And then over here we have Arthur. Doesn't look like he's burning a lot of calories there. And this is Merlin. I'm not sure why they named him that. Merlin was a magician. Maybe he disappears a lot, I don't know. I believe this is a burrow. I think mules are bigger. It looks like a mama goat and her baby over there. Looks like we got a rooster running loose out here. He wants to get in there with the female chickens. I remember seeing this last time I was here. Some kind of wind sculpture or something. Got a little path here leading down to what I believe are more horses. They're not overriding them in the corral, because I saw a lot of them over there. There we go. There's a horse. Not paying attention. He's busy eating some oats. I remember this trail from when I came here before. I think the creek was running a little stronger back then. This path goes around for I think about a mile up through the woods. Basically just a walkway through the woods. A nice little creek here. All right, now I'm here in the old neighborhood that I grew up in. Well, we moved here when I was 10. So I went through 5th grade, up through high school here, and actually lived back here again later when I was in my 20s, and after my mom moved out, me and my wife lived in our old house. But anyway, this is the old neighborhood. That's where the Johnsons lived. I remember that They had a couple of girls that lived there. My refrigerator broke. Well, actually, it was the freezer, and then my mom had to store my ice cream for my 12th birthday over there. And I remember when we went to get it for my birthday, the Johnson twins had eaten all of it. My kids have heard that story probably 100 times. And those trees you see in a big row back there, my mom planted those. I remember when she planted them, I used to run and jump over the top of them to practice my jumping skills. Of course, now they're about 80 feet tall. And that's the house that I used to live in. Of course, it looked a lot different back then. I mean, the house pretty much looked the same, but the yard looked completely different. We didn't have all these things planted here. And this is my house from another angle, or my old house. These houses from the neighbors didn't exist. It's amazing how much can happen in only 50 years. I'm here on the historic Redmond Brick Road. Spent a lot of time here as a kid because my best friend Steve lived here, and I'd often come down here. Then they didn't have the sign calling it historic, but it was protected because it was the only brick road, I think, outside of the greater Seattle area that still existed, and so they were protecting it. A lot of gravel trucks would run up and down it. I think after a while they prohibited them from doing it because it was ruining the road. But anyway, we'll be taking a look at that today. This is what the brick road looks like. Pretty much looked the same when I was growing up. Not much has changed since they haven't allowed a lot of construction and other things to come in and change the way this place looks, which is nice. I guess this is called Evans Creek. When I grew up here, it didn't have a name. We just called it the creek. And I caught a fish. I was casting. All this stuff wasn't here. Even these rocks weren't here. They must have added that. But this was all like gravel coming down here. This grass wasn't all here. The creek was actually a little wider and didn't have all this, grass around it like it does now. Anyway, I was practicing casting under this bridge. I didn't intend on catching anything. I wasn't even using any bait. Anyway, I got a tug on my line from under there, and I started reeling it in. I'd never actually caught a fish before. I was just practicing with some of my friend's equipment. And my friend Richard, who has gone fishing a lot, kept telling me, no, reel it in. Pull the line up like this. And anyway, when we finally got it into shore, it was a pretty large salmon that I somehow pulled in that we ate a few days later after I cleaned it and froze it. But anyway, that's my little story of the creek here. We used to just come down and wade in it. It's not really that deep, but it sure looks different because all this grass just didn't look like this. You could get down to it easier back then. My friend Steve and his brother Richard lived there with his mother, and his dad had passed away a few years before that. Right there where those trees are, there used to be a house, and the house was about, I don't know, probably 80 years old or something. I think it was built in like 1900 or somewhere around there before they even built this brick road. There was a man named Mr. Nimmo that lived there. Nimmo had Steve's mom, who was a nurse, take care of him, and then they left him the house. And that's pretty much how they got there. And I don't know if they paid anything or he just willed it over to them. But anyway, they got the house. And Nimmo died when he was like 97. But back in that field, right back there, for some reason, my friend Steve, his brother Richard, my brother Carl, my sister Diane, their friend Lisa, they all had some wild idea to take off all their clothes and go running naked through the field. Back then, I think streaking was kind of popular, so I don't know if that's where they got the idea. My friend Steve was too embarrassed, so he left his underwear on. Anyway, he confessed to me later about his sordid deed, They didn't ask me to participate because I knew I wouldn't participate in that kind of foolishness. Guess I was a stick in the mud even back then. Here at Marymore Park now. I grew up here, and when I did, they only had like one baseball field, and then the rest of it was just a park to picnic at and walk around in. And then they later built a Velodrome, which is a bicycle racing track. But now the place has changed a lot. They have more fields than you can shake a stick at for all sorts of sports here. Anyway, let's take a look at some of them. This has become a field for remote-controlled airplanes and drones. Alright, here's baseball field number 1. And over there is baseball field number 2. I don't know how I missed that one. It's kind of in between the two and a little further off, but that's baseball field number 3. Also, ball fields 6 through 8, which is what I was showing earlier, are those 3 ball fields. Apparently they have 5 more baseball fields. Check this out. If I turn left, I got soccer fields 7 through 9. If I go straight, I got soccer fields 12 through 16. When they have a triangle field, pet memorial garden, off-leash dog area, and the Audubon bird loop trail. I didn't have any of that stuff when I was growing up here. Here's the Marymoor climbing practice facility. Looks like you could do rock climbing here. They have ropes and carabiners. My friend used to be a rock climber. He would have loved this. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2006, so he probably never lived to see this even being built. And here's a view of it without the fence in the way. It's pretty cool. He definitely didn't have anything like this when I was growing up. This is the Velodrome bicycle racing track. I guess now it's the Jerry Baker Memorial Velodrome, although it wasn't called that back then, so I'm guessing that Jerry Baker passed away since I was a kid. I guess Jerry Baker was a cycling enthusiast that lived in this area, and then he passed away in 2015. This track, I knew it was constructed when I was growing up here. It was in '74. So I'd already lived here for 4 years before this was even built. This is what the track looks like. They can do professional racing here. These guys are playing some kind of game out here. It doesn't look like baseball. I'm not sure what they're playing. Maybe cricket or something? I'll just call it don't get your whites dirty sport. Some really scenic views here at the park. Here's some kind of sculpture they built here. They didn't have this kind of fancy stuff when I was growing up here. They did have this here when I was a kid. I remember climbing up it, climbing inside and trying to climb up that. And I guess I got to the woman part and I was trying to climb higher. Apparently I put my hand in an inappropriate spot. My friend Steve started laughing at me. But that will be the end of that. But we shall speak no more of this. This is the area that was known as Marymore Park when I grew up here. Although they didn't have an art barn. I know that much. I think this is what they now call the mansion. It used to be painted green back in the day. I think this is the tree where Steve tried to hide from me by putting a branch in his mouth and a couple other branches in his hands. and I didn't see where he was. It was kind of like this, bunch of greenery everywhere. I finally spotted him, having the keen eagle eye that I do. This is a trail leading to the Old Windmill. It looks like that's still here. And here's the Old Windmill. The only thing that's changed is its color. It looks like they try and keep it color coordinated with the main house over there, because this used to be green too. I don't know how efficient it is. I don't think in my whole life I've ever seen that windmill move. Those bands, or whatever you want to call on them, they just pretty much stay in the same spot all the time. I imagine at one point it probably worked. If you enjoyed our adventure today, we'll come back and join me for another Adventures of Big A.